know the horror stories, the disgraceful past, people with serious mental illness demonized, abused, tortured in the name of treatment. We know the liberation story, the trajectory of hope, people with serious mental illness set free, released from hospitals, due process rights provided, restored. We know the harrowing stories, the disgraceful present, people with serious mental illness locked in jails and prisons, living homeless, hospital commitment, hospital discharge, hospital commitment, hospital discharge. We agree upon the problem. People with serious mental illness are not living integrated into our communities. Deinstitutionalization is failing. Releasing people from hospitals is failing. Ending long-term commitment, because we are respecting, at least in theory, due process rights, is failing. As an attorney in my life and in my work, I have had the privilege to develop relationships with beautiful human beings trapped inside avoidable tragedies. It is heartbreaking and it is motivating. I can tell you that in working with my clients, I have been given a close-up view of our current approach to mental illness, and it comes down to this. Long-term hospitalization has been replaced by three things. First, it has been replaced by criminal justice incarceration. Second, it has been replaced by homelessness. Third, it has been replaced by endless short-term hospital commitments. And this is not okay. People with serious mental illness do not belong in jails and prisons. They should not have to live homeless. Just like people without serious mental illness, people with serious mental illness deserve access to lives free from want and fear. They deserve access to lives with dignity. So, if hospital deinstitutionalization has led to jail and prison institutionalization, if hospital houselessness has led to street homelessness, if long-term residential commitment has been supplanted by short-term consistent commitment, then the solution seems obvious: reinstitutionalization. Regrettable from a civil rights perspective, unavoidable from a human rights perspective. Civil rights are impeding human rights. Long-term hospitalization, long-term institutionalization, we must return to it. At least that is the story society is telling itself today. But this solution feels wrong. Reinstitutionalization can be rationalized. I have just provided the rationalization. And yet, if we support reinstitutionalization, even with the rationalizations, we must accept, we must acknowledge that we are supporting segregation. Even with justifications we deem sufficient, we are still supporting systemic discrimination against an identified segment of our population. Because reinstitutionalization is segregation. Reinstitutionalization is discrimination. And beyond segregation, beyond discrimination, reinstitutionalization removes an entire population of human beings from our society. People with serious mental illness exist inside our world in a unique way, possessing a unique perspective and experience. Reinstitutionalization does not just deny people with serious mental illness access to our society. It denies society the benefit of this population's neuro and experience diversity. Surely we can find another way. But what about community-based resources, community-based mental health services? Johnny is 6'4", 6'5". His hair explodes from his head in all directions. His passions are his mother, fresh air, quiet, and pleasant walks. And pleasant walks average about 20 miles. He is meticulous with food, scrutinizing the ingredients and their nutrients. He eats with deliberation. Between the walks and the food, he is about the size of a teenage boy. Johnny had been in the hospital where there is no mother or fresh air, certainly no quieter walks, where his choices about what goes in his body and his brain were not respected. When he was discharged, we went down to the Rio Grande Valley, to a park along the Rio Grande, and we sat and we looked across the water. Laurie, Mexico is quiet, which is his highest compliment. Yes. The water is high. Yes. how much do you think I should worry about the water being so high? Because I've had the privilege to develop a relationship with Johnny, the opportunity to represent him in this way, I understood his meaning. Johnny, you live the most environmentally conscious life of anyone I know. But fossil fuels are used in the production of the food I eat. In that moment, I realized his food deliberation was not about nutrients or calories, it was about the environment. He had been restricting his food intake because he was worried about climate change. Johnny, there are many smart scientists studying and thinking and working on the air and the water. They know so much, I do not even know what they know. We can only do what we can do, and we must trust other people to do the same. You need to eat. Please eat. That makes sense. It is sensible reality. Sensible reality. Anyone who has ever had any contact with the mental health system knows it is sane insanity. And maybe within the mental health service context, the nonsensical does make some sense. After all, in the past 50 years or so, we have attempted to deconstruct, invert, and reconstruct an entire system. What do I mean? Imagine a hospital, the tangible structure, a building, and inside are services for people with serious mental illness, some definition of treatment, housing, food, and at least theoretically, access to activities and socialization. These services exist inside the institution, inside the hospital, and to access them, the humans go to the hospital. Deinstitutionalization deconstructed this structure, sort of. As we know, deinstitutionalization of the hospitals has led to incarceration in jails and prisons, where the same institutional structure exists. Imagine a jail or a prison, the tangible structure, a building, and inside, people with serious mental illness are housed, fed, provided some definition of treatment. Perhaps they have access to activities and socialization, perhaps not. Deinstitutionalization has not successfully deconstructed the structure. It has shifted the structure's form. Deinstitutionalization's goal was to enable people with serious mental illness to live integrated, to have the ability to access our world in the same way as people without serious mental illness. Recognizing that institutionalization is segregation and segregation is discrimination, deinstitutionalization attempted to flip everything upside down, integration instead of segregation. Think about a community, a neighborhood. Imagine a human being living in that neighborhood. Maybe they live in a house, maybe they live in an apartment. The important thing is that they live in the neighborhood, in the community. But in order to maintain their housing, their position in the neighborhood and the community, the person needs help, they need services. And so services are provided to them in their home, in their neighborhood, in their community. These services are community-based. In the inverted structure, the reconstructed structure, people with serious mental illness live within the community just like everybody else, and the services go to them. The humans do not go to the services go to the humans. Now, granted, community-based mental health services are drastically underfunded, but even when semi-reasonably funded, and even when people are provided housing within the community and services intended to enable them to maintain that housing, still, on the whole, it is not working. Why? Why are community-based services not working? One answer is that people with serious mental illness, even with community-based services, are not capable of living within the community. Their failure to integrate demonstrates that we have no choice. We must deconstruct the reconstruction and reconstruct the deconstruction, so back to reinstitutionalization. Another answer is that people with serious mental illness are failing the services by not doing as they are told. They are not treatment compliant. They are not taking the pills the system tells them to take. People with serious mental illness are failing the system, and their failure demonstrates that we have no choice, but to give them no choice. Physical freedom's price is the loss of body and brain autonomy. Regrettable from a human rights perspective and avoidable from a civil rights perspective, human rights are impeding civil rights. Forced treatment, the loss of body and brain autonomy in exchange for physical freedom. Are these our only options? The untenable status quo, civil rights violating reinstitutionalization, or human rights violating forced treatment? No, they are not. We have attempted to invert the system without inverting our perspective. The humans are not failing the system is failing the humans. The system offers the treatments and services the system decides the person needs. Then, if the person refuses those treatments and services, is the solution to force those treatments and services upon them? This is sane insanity. Let's say I need protein. The system offers meat, but I'm a vegetarian and I refuse. I still need protein. The sane insanity solution is to state that meat is the most efficient source of protein. I am refusing meat, therefore I must be force-fed meat. The sensible reality solution is to accept my choice to not eat meat and identify plant-based alternatives. Sensible reality begins with communication, speaking the same language, finding out what the person means, what they want and need. Juan is freckled with fall leaf-colored hair. His passions are trees, pancakes, and words. Juan did not speak for a year. He spent the time word thinking rather than word speaking. Before we met, Juan had been missing for 3 years. He had been homeless for 3 years, or at least that is one definition. Juan, your father is worried because you were missing for 3 years. He does not want to lose you again. I was not missing. I was where I have always been. You were here in the Rio Grande Valley? No, I was here in my body. How can I be missing? What is the definition of missing? Juan, I understand you were not missing, but you were homeless, right? No, I was not homeless. Well, where were you living? Wherever I was. Did you live in a house, an apartment, an RV or something? No, but you were not homeless. No. Did you have shelter? Sometimes. So you moved around. Yes, I was traveling. What is the definition of homeless? Juan, you're living with your father now, right? Yes. Do you like living with him? Yes. Do you want to continue to live with him? Yes. Your father thinks you're going to leave. Oh, I am going to leave. If you like living with him and you want to stay, why are you going to leave? Because he wants me to. Words. Words and their meanings. With words, Juan and I discussed words. He stopped speaking for a year out of frustration with misunderstandings. And so he thinks about words and their meanings. He tries to figure out where each word began, where it was born. He explains this is the only way to stop the misunderstandings. We sat together, Juan and I, using words to discuss words. And in doing so, we identified the housing concern. And then again, through words, we created what some people might define as the most concrete word manifestation of all, a legal document, a word bridge translation. In Juan and his father's case, a lease. I visit Juan every so often, and sometimes he tells me stories of his travels or we talk about animal friends. But most of the time we sit silently over his father's pancakes and under his favorite tree, communicating without words. Anyone who has had a conversation with a person living inside psychosis understands communication is challenging. Misunderstandings are so common we give up on each other. But when we do so, we lose the chance to know each other, help each other, learn from each other. People with serious mental illness become voiceless. They become voiceless not because they do not make sense or because they do not have the right words. They become voiceless because we are not speaking the same language. A Psychiatric Advance Directive is a way to insert sensible reality upon our world. Returning to the protein analogy, Johnny and Juan, like all human beings, need protein. Think of a Psychiatric Advance Directive as a legal document enabling a person to state their protein preferences. Through a Psychiatric Advance Directive, Johnny can explain that he wants environmentally friendly protein sources. Through a Psychiatric Advance Directive, Juan can explain that he does not eat animals, eggs turn his stomach, milk makes him sick. He needs a different way to feed his muscles. We all need protein, but it comes in many forms. Not everyone wants or likes meat, and that is okay. Instead of force-feeding meat as the only source of protein, we should ask, Which factors are important to them in the protein source decision? Which protein source does the person want? Then respect their decision and provide their chosen option. Currently, the mental health system provides what it thinks the person needs in order to live integrated into the community. It provides meat. The services provided are not based on what the person says they want and need in order to live integrated into the community. When the services provided are not accepted or they do not work, when the person cannot stomach or will not accept meat, the person, rather than the system, is blamed for the failure. The services provided, the services created should be based on what the person says they want and need, not what the mental health system decides they should want and need. Psychiatric Advance Directives are legal mechanisms enabling people with serious mental illness to inform the system of their preferences, their needs. They are legal mechanisms of advocacy and accountability to the human beings the system exists to serve. We do not need to sacrifice human rights, civil rights, entire human beings in order to address the cycle of criminal justice, homelessness, and hospitalization recidivism. Instead, if we invert our perspective, we can see a solution that enables us to maintain our principles. We can provide housing in our communities and the supports and services the person says they want and need in order to meaningfully integrate, to become our neighbors and our friends. And in our daily lives, when we encounter a person with Johnny or Juan's spirit, we can remember that we may have happened upon an environmentalist, a linguist, a traveler. And in that interaction, that human-to-human opportunity, we have the chance to challenge society's sane insanity and insert a little sensible reality upon our world. Thank you.